We Are Lonely was recorded on a number of Aboriginal lands, including Gumbaynggirr country and across the Kulin nations. We would like to pay our respects to the custodians and elders of these nations. We would also like to pay our respects to the custodians of the land on which you are now listening. This is different to other podcasts you might have heard. I think of it as a documentary reality podcast with heart. We've connected 4 people in their 20s with mentors who are helping them build strategies to reconnect. Because loneliness is something we all need to start talking about.
Isolating myself has been a habit, and being lonely, I guess, is also it's become a habit for me.
I think loneliness is something I've definitely struggled with.
Still end up prioritizing work over spending time with people I love or something like this.
Personally, when I was younger, I had the sense of family and people come together and all that type of stuff. It doesn't happen these days anymore.
Everyone feels lonely at some stage in their life.
When we don't talk about it, when it's left unsaid, that's when it can start to spiral and build up and turn into something much greater.
And that has adverse effects on your mental and physical health.
Connection is everything. As humans and as mammals, we require that connection.
That anxiety, that trigger of loneliness that we get when we don't have that is actually really important, because it's that reminder of, okay, there's something missing here, we need to reconnect.
So loneliness to me is a question rather than a situation that you can't get out of.
This is We Are Lonely, and I'm Gemma Spegg. This show is supported by Medibank. Before we get into things, I want to let you know that being about loneliness, this podcast gets personal and vulnerable. At times, we'll be exploring difficult themes, including social anxiety, racism, and isolation. If this raises any issues for you, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14 or go to reachout.com, which offers dedicated support for young people. It seems as quickly as we're filling this planet, we're each becoming more isolated. 1 in 3 Australians is experiencing loneliness, but it's a worldwide issue. The UK now has a Minister of Loneliness, and the US Surgeon General has declared loneliness a health epidemic. And whilst it can seem like a simple human emotion, loneliness can have serious health implications. Being consistently lonely can be as bad for us as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And so we built this podcast to find ways to break the loneliness cycle. I've studied psychology, and I have my own podcast about psychology in our 20s. When I heard about this project, I knew it was something that I had to be a part of, because I think loneliness impacts people in their 20s very differently, and it's something that I feel really passionate about. To make sure we're on top of the complexities, we've also reached out to people who have researched this topic for a long time.
I'm Professor Ian Hickey. I'm the Co-Director of Health and Policy at the Brain and Mind Centre of the University of Sydney. I think we know from surveys internationally and now in Australia, loneliness is actually often reported, not simply by the elderly and the obviously physically isolated, but increasingly by young people. So the period in which loneliness actually peaks in many of those surveys is amongst young adults.
That's why we've made this podcast with people in their 20s.
My name's Holly. I'm 24 years old and I live down the coast in Victoria. So I guess what drew me to the podcast was probably, I think, the opportunity for connection.
Yeah, so my name's Alex Hamo. I'm 26. I feel relieved to be doing to be part of a project like this, because I often feel like when I am burnt out or when I feel lonely, the things that I do often increase these negative feelings. But I think that there's a way out of it, and it's quite close by.
Well, G'day, my name's Charity. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Gumbaynggirr people, which is the land that we walk upon today.
personally, I'm not going to lie, for me to be connected, I need to have the confidence to be connected. So used to hiding away or being at home or something like that, that I go outside and it causes anxiety. And like just meeting a social group, like going to a ukulele group or something like that, like that gives me anxiety because I'm not confident with who I am as a person as of yet.
So, my name is Tim. I'm 24, and for me it's important having that representation, even as niche as a half Asian, Australian, queer person in Melbourne. It's nice knowing that having that out there, maybe someone else can resonate with that.
We worked hard to find the best mentors who can bring empathy and life experience to these participants.
All right. Hello. My name is Tessa and I am a counsellor in private practice.
Tessa has also made some powerful art installations where people shared their stories of being lonely, and she's also Holly's mentor.
Everyone started talking about so many other aspects of mental health, like, anxiety and things like that. But loneliness is just, it's not sexy. Like, no one wants to talk about it, and the shame's huge around it. And it's just, I don't know, I think that's why people sort of hide it. And, it's not normalised.
It's interesting though, because the research that's come out about in relation to shame and stigma with loneliness, it's actually a perceived stigma. So we think other people are going to judge us,
100%.
or ridicule us. But actually what happens when we open up about loneliness is that it's a driver for connection.
To understand why a queer person is more likely to be lonely, you have to kind of go back to every queer person's childhood and look at their origin story. And obviously all of us are very different, but the one thing we have in common is that the world is very straight.
Sean Zepps shares stories about parenting and mental health and about being queer. He has a podcast, he's on Instagram. He's also written a book about his parenting experience called Not Like Other Dads, and he's also one of our mentors.
Queer people, our stories are not always represented in the media. Our love is not highlighted in movies. Our heartache is not often the subject of great television shows. And so when you're a young queer person, it's really hard to feel like your problems are not problems that are worthy of being told and discussed and picked apart and worked on.
There have been many times in my life where I've thought, okay, maybe I'm not masculine enough, maybe I'm not white passing enough, maybe I'm not skinny enough, maybe I'm not physically attractive enough. There's so many different things that can divide people within the community.
We connected Charity with Dr. Deidre Anderson, or Dee. She's one of the biggest names in transition and sport in Australia.
If you lift up your left hand and look at the lines on your hand, and now look at the lines on your right, they're very different. And I often think that our right hand is the life we've been given, and our left hand is the life we choose to live. All right? Yeah. So you've clearly been dealt with a life or a stack of circumstances, but you still have got choice.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about.
Eager.
Good. Love it.
Because you went viral with your first video, right, on TikTok?
Yeah.
Alex's mentor, Barry Conrad, is an actor and musician based in Sydney.
How was that whole situation? Because that is a trip. Imagine downloading an app, making one video and then all of a sudden a couple 100,000 views or something crazy. How was that experience for you and TikTok fame, for lack of better phrases?
Yeah, I guess the difficulty of being one person, kind of, receiving support from hundreds of people and then being like roasted by hundreds of people, and just having like being the receiver of all of this, like a stranger. They're strangers, I'm a stranger to them. And so that was really tricky. And and I think part of me, when I think about it, part of me thinks that it does involve like bringing lots of people together. But part of me is pretty cynical about the whole process, because everyone is doing this on their phone, presumably by themselves, including me. Yeah, social media does this weird thing where it puts them all together in one place. And I think part of me thinks that it gives off an illusion that everyone is together.
Over the next 6 episodes, you'll get to know these 4 amazing people and follow their paths to reconnection. We Are Lonely will be available wherever you get your podcasts from the 8th of August. We hope you enjoy. If this show raises any issues for you, there are always places to turn, such as Lifeline on 13 11 14, beyondblue.com.au, and reachout.com, which offers dedicated support for young people. We Are Lonely is produced as part of Medibank's 10-year commitment to addressing loneliness. I'm Gemma Spegg. This show was produced and edited by Liz Keane and Simon Portis from Headline Productions. Music is by Kenneth Lampel. Fact-checking is by Jess Chung, and our team psychologist is Alison Howarth. Our team from Medibank includes Karen Aldiker, Nigel Davis, and Demi Michael. Project and production management is by Nick Randall and Robert Ranieri from Ranieri & Co.